Resident Evil 7 is a game about love. Stupid, stupid love. This is Mia. She's your wife, and she's been kidnapped by a family of hillbilly mold zombies, and you've got to save her. Because you love her, I guess. I mean, you'd better, with what you go through. Only a week after its release, Resident Evil 7 is being hailed as a breath of fresh air in an IP that was getting too far from its horror roots, and it is definitely that. It's a shot in the arm that the franchise needed, and I loved every moment of it. And I know what you're saying. You're saying, Phil, you peed your pants like a 2-week-old Chihuahua while you were playing Five Nights at Freddy's sister location. What good reason could you possibly have to play what is being called the scariest Resident Evil in 20 years?
Oh! Fuck! 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 Fuck!
And my answer to that is simple. First, Chihuahuas don't wear pants. That was a stupid simile. You should be ashamed, person I just made up. Second, Resident Evil 7 has more in common with Amnesia and Alien Isolation, where the atmosphere is key. You build up dread like towers of non-dairy creamer at the Waffle House, piece by piece, until suddenly something comes screaming out of the darkness, and you scream, and your cat screams, and then you both have a good cathartic laugh, and your waitress is pissed because you've spilled coffee everywhere, and who the fuck brings a cat into a Waffle House anyway? This is opposed to jump scare horror that's so prevalent in games nowadays, one scream after another, taking full advantage of your fight or flight instinct until you're basically immune to it. Because jump scares are like milkshakes. You need to give yourself some time between them to build up the anticipation and enjoyment that you get from eating them. Otherwise, you just end up numb to the pleasure, possibly sporting an eating disorder. God, I put a lot of food metaphors in this. But if there's anything that Resident Evil 7 gets right, it's that pacing. Resident Evil 7 has traded its fast action and mansions for a crawl through a rundown house in the bayous of Louisiana, and it's more twisted than a Jeffrey Dahmer coloring book. And that brings us back to Mia. Lovely, lovely Mia. Mia got caught up in some trouble. So you, being a doting, or stupid, husband, track her down to a charming locale in the swamp where you meet the Bakers. The Bakers are the best part of Resident Evil 7. A twisted family of cannibals straight out of Texas Chainsaw Massacre. They're essentially what would happen if you gave a Breitbart message board the ability to regenerate, create fungal monsters, and command insects to do their bidding. You spend the vast majority of the game switching between fighting them and hiding from them, and they make for superb villains. I've made a point to compare Resident Evil 7 to the more helpless survival horror games of the past 10 years, but the truth is that while the combat is scaled down, the general tenets of the Resident Evil franchise are still as plain as day. The camp, the over-the-top plot lines, hell, even some of the humor is still retained. I think that's important to point out, because based on the playable demos leading up to its release, there were plenty of people who wondered why this wasn't just turned into its own IP. It seemed completely unrelated from the previous games. Why Resident Evil? Why not make a new game called Denizen Nasty, or Habitant Bad? But the connection is definitely there, and it becomes clearer and clearer as you get closer to the end of the game. Between the elaborate keys, puzzles, and scavenging nature of the gameplay, there's no reason to wonder exactly how this game connects to previous entries, even if you don't kill zombies per se. Oh, we should talk about that. The Molded. If the Bakers are some of the best villains of Resident Evil, their fungus-based foot soldiers, the Molded, are some of the worst. Actually, I found them to be the only really problematic thing in this game. I mean, don't get me wrong, they're spooky. They're amorphous black blobs of goo and teeth. Of course they're spooky. But they're all you get in terms of non-boss baddies. And just like the jump scares in FNAF, Slender, and Steel Magnolias, their individual nastiness wears off over time. And before you ask, no, I don't count the bugs as bad guys. Sure, some of them are the size of Rottweilers, but we've got roaches the size of Rottweilers in Georgia. You know what we call them? Roaches. And as long as they work and pay their taxes, we leave them alone, and they leave us alone as well. Aside from the molded, the only real head-scratcher I had was Ethan's devotion to Mia. I mean, don't get me wrong. We all want love, that perfect somebody who fulfills us completely, that will go through hell and more just to save. But how many severed limbs and psychotic redneck grannies does it take before you say, "Baby, I love you, good luck, and goodbye"? Do her nipples dispense scotch and precious jewels? I mean, what the fuck? As far as major releases are concerned, 2017 could have done far worse than to kick off with Resident Evil 7. It's exciting, bleak, and already a strong contender for one of the best games of the year. It even encourages multiple playthroughs, and I think I'm going to go through with some New Game Plus. Well, maybe after I've had a few drinks, but yeah, I'll give the bakers another dance. Why the fuck not?